On today's Domain Sherpa discussion, did you hear about the $8.9 million or $17 million sales that happened recently? Or how about the $200,000 value domain name that sold for $10.99? We review Superbowl commercials, ICANN CEO Fadi Chehade's apparent disdain for domain investors, and much more. Stay tuned. I have 3 sponsor messages before we get into today's show. First, if you have a great domain name and nothing to show when people visit, you're missing out on potential advertising revenue, leads, and partnership opportunities. NicheWebsites.com can build you a site quickly with a price option to suit any need. But as their tagline says, they don't just build websites, they build businesses. NicheWebsites.com. Second, if you're buying or selling a domain name or portfolio and you want an estimate of its value, Estimate.com is the place to go. Just like you'd visit Zillow.com to get an estimate of a house value, Estimate.com provides key information about the most important statistics so you can make an informed decision based on data. Finally, whether you're buying, selling, brokering, or financing a domain name, you need an escrow company that's properly licensed, bonded, insured, and audited. That company is Escrow.com, and they've been doing it since 1999. Escrow.com. It's about trust. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger, and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, and this is the Domain Sherpa Discussion. When news and events happen in the domain name industry and you want to hear a more in-depth discussion on the topic, you tune in to the Domain Sherpa Discussion. We're joined by 3 Domain Sherpas this week. From left to right, we have Andrew Allemann, domain name investor and editor of DomainNameWire.com. Michael Berkens, publisher of TheDomains.com, co-founder of the Right of the Dot consultancy, and founder of the domain marketplace MostWantedDomains.com. And Paige Howe, founder of the JoeDomains.com marketplace and the service DomainTipSheet.com, where you can find great hand-selected domain names at reg-free pricing. Sherpas, welcome to this week's show.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
First up,
Thanks,
I have no idea why Pete Carroll, coach of the Seattle Seahawks football team, decided that the last play of the Super Bowl would be a pass instead of running the ball, giving it to Marshawn Lynch, as everybody expected. I was traumatized, as I know everyone in Seattle was. The only person I know that was ecstatic was our own Mike Berkens, who seems to have pulled everything out of his closet possible that would even remotely resemble some Patriots garb, and has it hanging behind him.
It's a very small portion, actually. Most of it got shipped home. I mean, the championship merchandise. But, maybe next one.
All right, next show. We're looking for that. So I know you're rooting for the Patriots, Mike. Which did you enjoy more, the win or the halftime show by Katy Perry? Because I know you're a big Katy Perry fan.
I like Katy Perry. Not a big fan, but no, the win. The win is unbelievable. The win is great.
It was unbelievable. The wound is still too fresh. I don't want to talk about that.
All right, we can talk about it.
That giant LCD stage was pretty awesome. Did it look as cool in person as it did on TV?
It was really cool. So was the lion. So was her flying around, which was amazing because the roof was open. So I'm not exactly sure how she actually flew around. I guess she really flew around. But the whole show was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was a great halftime show.
So it was definitely worth the tickets to go to the Super Bowl?
If you win.
If you win. If you don't win, yeah. That sucked.
Really a miserable experience. But no, the one thing about the halftime show, usually the ones I've been to in the past, they usually sort of line it up so it faces sort of the home team side.
Right.
They sort of put it in the middle, so like in the end zone, so the whole stadium could see it, except I guess if you were in the end zone. But much better, so congrats to the NFL on that decision.
Yeah. All right, so who won the Super Bowl? No, I don't mean who deflated my week. I tell you, Monday was a hard day. Did Wix beat GoDaddy? So Wix.com, a company that maybe I've heard of once before, is an online website platform where you can get a website up and running for free almost immediately. And then they have tiers where you can pay for additional services to host your website. Wix brought in Brett Favre, Emmett Smith, Terrell Owens, Franco Harris. It was like a who's who of players. GoDaddy had some no-name dude working away. He wasn't even like typing on his computer. He was like writing with a pen or something archaic like that. Andrew, let's start with you. Who won the Super Bowl commercials, in your opinion?
Wix won hands down on a couple fronts. First of all, they made the gutsy move of having like the end of game commercial, about 2-minute warning, which ended up paying off. And I didn't care who won. I have to say that was a heck of an exciting finish to the game. So they won there. But yeah, they ran the commercial that they had planned for, whereas GoDaddy, it's now evident they really didn't have a backup plan. They thought they were going to run the puppy dog commercial. And the story there is, it was stock video footage, and some guy who had never done voiceover did the voiceover. So it was clearly last minute. More people talked about the commercial they pulled than the one they ran. And it doesn't matter if people hate or love your commercial. It matters that people are talking about it on Monday morning. And I doubt many people were talking about GoDaddy's commercial on Monday morning.
But leading up to the Super Bowl, everybody was talking about GoDaddy's commercial. Mike Berkens was one of the first domain industry news sites to focus on the GoDaddy commercial and then the fact that they were pulling it. That day, you told me you had the highest traffic day ever, Mike. Wasn't that the case? So I can only imagine how many people were talking about GoDaddy's commercial.
It was blowing up on Twitter. I was trying to follow the Twitter feeds, and it was amazing. Number of people. So I disagree somewhat. I think for the most part, I think Andrew's right. As long as they talk about it, it's good. But I think the nationwide commercial kind of shows, that just because they talk about it, it's not necessarily good. So I actually didn't see any of the commercial. I saw just a few that they showed on the Jumbotron because I was at the game. So I actually didn't see the commercials, and certainly not as they aired. So, but the nationwide commercial has got a lot of negativity, and I'm even seeing it on the news, and people really hated the commercial. So I don't think that I don't think that was a good spend for them, even though people are talking about it. It's such a negative light, and I think GoDaddy would have suffered sort of the same thing, except even worse, because it was a bit more personally offensive to people to some extent. So, I don't know why they didn't use maybe one of the commercials that they've been running. God knows they have plenty. Something that's already, even though it's been seen, rather than sort of a last-minute deal. But in general, I think Wix, from what I've read, got really good publicity, and they did a lot of social networking around it. And I guess the USA Today ad meter, I read that yesterday. I think GoDaddy was 55th out of 61. So, it doesn't matter what we think. It's what really the country thinks. So.
Yeah. Hey, Paige, did GoDaddy, if it was GoDaddy's plan to run this commercial beforehand, knowing there might be some negativity and, hey, it might actually do well, like scantily clad women might be offensive to women, do you think it was beneficial for GoDaddy? And if not, do you think Namecheap was able to take advantage of it?
No, I think the stuff that happened in our space, it was a big deal. I think they actually probably had better damage control than they thought. Most people probably never knew about the bad commercial. It blew up on Twitter for the 6-hour news cycle, and it blew up in our industry. But I think most people, in the real world, considering the 100 and some billion that would have seen it, if it would have been after that Budweiser commercial, where people would have thought it was the same puppy in the same ad, you know what I mean? And then it would have got shipped off, just to the antithesis of everything that's trendy and good, whether it's animal rescues. You can't get any better than that. And they were the antithesis of that. So I thought that they said, how can we be a little edgy without girls? And someone came up with this idea of this little catch thing at the end. Oh, because I'm shipping you out on the website I made at GoDaddy. And they just never ran it by a focus group, or else no one was ever there to say, hey, guys, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I think the winner of the commercial, I think you couldn't tell the difference between a Wix commercial and a GoDaddy commercial of 3 years ago, the Jean-Claude and the woman with the store. Those would have looked like the exact same commercials in terms of someone building a thing. So it was...
Well, that's a good point.
Wix is worth $1 billion.
When the Wix commercial came on, I wasn't even sure if it was the GoDaddy commercial or not. It didn't.
But I think the winner for me was Verisign. The BMW commercial where they showed Greg Gumbel looking at this thing going, what is the @ and what is this something.com? What is that? Do we email to that or what do we do to that? And they just had it up on the screen, this so-and-so at so-and-so.com. And it ended up being for their new car, their i3 or whatever they call it. But to me, that was the thing that if they would have come on, it would have been Verisign, and they would have said, still the one, 160 million domain names. Welcome to .com. I mean, that would, that would have been something amazing.
Now, Namecheap tried to capitalize on GoDaddy's blunder by convincing registrants to move their domains from GoDaddy to Namecheap through a discount coupon and a promise that for every domain name that they brought over, they'd donate $1.50 to the Humane Society. Does anybody know if that made a difference in terms of actual registrations being moved over?
I don't think that the time frame was long enough. I mean, because by the time, I wrote about that ad at maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and by later in that afternoon, GoDaddy announced they were pulling the ad. So, it was, within less than 12 hours that all took place. So yeah. I don't think it was a meaningful.
Yeah, Namecheap does that every year, and they had planned to do the switch day again this year. They just added in the donation at the last minute. So I'm sure they get business out of it, but even like with the elephant deal, where Bob Parsons shot the elephant, put the video up there. Yeah, it's not good for GoDaddy to lose, but it's minuscule, right? At the end of the day, I think the interesting thing here is I wonder how much the fact that GoDaddy's trying to go public had to do with them pulling the ad. I'd love to be a fly in the wall in that kind of discussion. So.
Right. Yeah, that would have been interesting. All right, next up, Rick Schwartz does it again. Even though he officially retired at the end of 2014, he can't help but be the top of the news. It was reported on Monday through a host of blogs, starting with thedomains.com, and then on The Wire on Tuesday that Rick Schwartz, a.k.a. the Domain King, has just closed the sale of, not safe for work, Porno.com, largest reported domain name sale in 5 years. Mike, were you surprised to hear this news when Rick emailed you?
I've been talking to Rick about it for about a month. So I was well aware of the negotiations and back in 2014. And so there's obviously a lot of stuff I'm not going to divulge, but I can tell you that, I admire Rick so much for, saying no. It's very, very hard to say no. And he's actually said no to 7.5 million in that negotiation. So,
wow.
I honestly wouldn't do it. I couldn't. I just, couldn't have turned that down. But he did, and he got more. And and he always insists. So I think almost every one of his sales, except for one, has been public, so they're not under privacy.
Yeah.
People will, say, sure, it'll be private, but he'll say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to sell it unless it's public. So, I admire the guy very much on that front. And so actually, I knew about the sale, well before. And so it didn't surprise me, but great respect for Rick.
And you gave Rick counsel that it should sell for 888 just to give a little play to the Chinese with their lucky number 8.
Again, not, I only, again, we have a lot of confidential conversations, and so the only thing I really, I'm willing to say publicly is I know for a fact he turned 7.5 down. So beyond that, I feel like it would be betraying the trust to discuss it further.
Yeah. Hey, Andrew, were you surprised to read in the press release that Brandon Abbey, who is president of escrow.com, said that the sale of Porno.com was the largest single domain they have ever handled?
Yeah, I was surprised. I had known that they had handled some 8-figure transactions, and so I guess I just kind of assumed those were for one domain. It could be that they did a $15 million transaction. It was like the ComNet and org, right? And so really the com was the 8-figure one. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see that. Not taking anything away from them, just I was under the impression just from some things some of their former employees had said once that they had done a couple 8-figure sales, which my guess is they have. It's just there were a handful of domain names
Or
involved.
maybe they were underpayments, and maybe this one was, maybe he meant an all-cash sale.
Could be that they could be going on, but I mean, still, it's a heck of a sale, and the amazing thing is that it's kind of being overshadowed now. Just
I know, right?
48 hours later.
Yeah, it sort of sucked. I thought that this was going to be the high point of the show. You bought it for $42,000 in '97 from a college student who the week before bought it for $5,000. He sold it to a company in Prague. Rick has said that since '97, it's made in excess of $10 million just by redirecting the traffic to adult websites. Man, oh man, Paige. I don't own any adult websites, but $10 million since '97 sounds like a pretty good return on investment.
Well, it's interesting because even though it's an adult-oriented website, it's not an adult-oriented word, and that it's not really a banned word. I mean, it's not one of George Carlin's 7 dirty words. It's not something that you'd have to put, the dollar sign, whatever. So, I mean, it's something that would probably make it through most filters.
Yeah.
It's describing an adult film or something,
yeah.
And it's a short word for that. But the word in itself would not be offensive or something like that. So I think in that angle, maybe that contributed to the fact that it continued to get traffic, because it wouldn't necessarily be banned, even though it talks about something that might be banned. And so I think those were some unique qualities that Rick, I'm sure, extracted the most value from. And then the thing that the 888 told me about it is once Rick gets someone so far into the deal where they're trying to win the negotiation, they're trying to get it for something less, or you know how it is, like you're dealing with a vice president, and then he goes to the CEO, and the CEO says, well, offer this. I know that'll get it. You have a feeling that Rick got to the point where he finally, probably for the first time, they said, well, what would you take for it? You know what I mean? And he had probably never said anything. And I'm purely guessing here because I don't, talk to Rick about these things. But as it was one of those deals where he probably said, well, if you did this, and he probably not made it up, but, came up with this interesting thing. And they were probably like, done, you know what I mean? And that's just my guess at what happens when you get to that level where they finally do just say, what is it going to take? Not what's the best we can get or whatever you want, we want a discount to it. But really someone's like, we're ready to move forward and own this thing. What is it going to take to get it? And I think he asked for it and he got it. So.
Yeah, well, if you know Rick...
I'll say one more thing. And
yeah.
10 million is the new 1 million is what I'll say. So
of course it is.
I think since the Lehman Brothers and all that stuff, in the last 5 years, it's been who had money and what were they willing to pay and what did they want for their 300,000 or their 500,000 or their million or their million and a half. But now that maybe demand has overtaken supply and the sellers are back into naming their prices, at the high end, at the super high end, I think 10 million is the new 1 million.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you know Rick or you've emailed Rick in the past, send him an email and say, you should take Mike Steiger up on his offer to have you on the show and talk about this sale. I have asked Rick. He said maybe soon. Send him an email and encourage him because I want to ask him how that negotiation went down. Did he ever throw out a number? How he came to the 888 number? Lots of interesting questions. Rick is never one to pull any punches. In fact, he ended his press release saying, quote, use an easy to spell and easy to spell domain name, or easy to remember and easy to spell domain name, and never settle for anything without .com at the end unless you use your local country code. He never stops. And it served him well over the past 20 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's I think in his press release, the one he put out personally, I think he said that he only sold, 20 names in 20 years?
Yeah.
Like that. So he said no a lot. And so, of course, over the years, he's had, millions and twos and threes and $4 $5 million offers he's said no to, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for anybody.
Well, congratulations, Rick. Speaking of big sales, 2 more. I was going to bring up Credit.Club next, but it just got eclipsed by the $17 million sale of the Numeric 163.360.com. Confirmed on 163.com today. If you, I'll put a link below, and then you can translate it from Chinese into English. The domain name sold for about 100 million won, and is an upgrade to 360.cn. Wow, that is the sale of what? The past 5 years? Actually, it's not the highest sale. Is it, Andrew?
Well, it would be if it's confirmed, right? It'd be the highest public sale ever. Maybe not the highest sale, but the highest public domain only. I'm assuming. I haven't seen the details.
Yeah.
If it's actually the number.
I still put insurance as I know that there was some sort of business behind it.
Yeah.
But it was basically the name that sold for 50 million. I mean, there's a lot of sales, and I think. It seems like I put some of the responsibility on the GTLDs, and the fact that a lot of focus is now on domain names that wasn't on domain names. It seems like a lot of activity. I mean, I have an offer for 200 grand right now on a name that has a $6,000 Estobot. I mean, these brandable names or names that match, sites and other extensions are, companies are finally waking up 20 years later, as Berkens would say. So, I mean, let's keep in mind
Michael Berkens, what do you mean you put, so the fact that these new TLDs are coming out, people are paying more attention to .com, or?
They're paying more attention to domain names and trying to lock down their space. So, yeah, I think it's in everybody sort of wins possibly deal, which is what I've thought all along the line is, for a while domains were sort of out of vogue and nobody was talking about them, and this whole GTLD thing is just shining a light on domains, which is good for everybody. So, I think people should keep in mind that 360.cn was the 49th most visited site according to Alexa. So it may lift, all NNN.com domains, but, just because that sold, for what it sold for, doesn't mean that every name is suddenly, a $10 million plus domain in the number space.
Yeah. Does this give you pause, Mike Berkens? You just sold 345.com right at the beginning of the year for $800,000. Do you think, if I would have waited until this one came out, I might have gotten more?
Yeah, I think I would have, I think if I waited, I would have gotten more. But, anyway. So, I mean, I think, I still have set 373.com, which is pretty good. And, I think, unless something dramatic happens in China, that's your risk.
Yeah.
Because it's, one of those governments, if there's any sort of regulation, or if they decide to do their own DNS, or if they decide to stop money transfers out of the country.
Right.
I mean, that's your downside risk, because there's only one kind of buyer for these names. So that's a minimal risk, I'm sure, but that's, a risk where these names that could be worth, $500,000 million go down to being worth 100 grand overnight almost.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Hey, Paige, what do you think about the Chinese market? Is it a minimal risk for these numerics if China suddenly takes a downturn? Or is it a minimal risk for China's economy to take a downturn?
I think the risk of the legislative or by decree would be more than the economy. Mm-hmm. I think moving off a CN to a .com, they've now entered an agreement with the Western-run registrar with rights and things like that. The CN registry is one of the few that I know of that did go dark, completely take back all the names and then reallocate them. So it's got that in its history. So if you were, say they're a $10 billion company or something like that, and you had to write every time in your prospectus, there is a risk that we operate on the .cn extension. It is controlled by the Chinese so-and-so, so-and-so. They can pretty much do whatever they want. And now you don't have to put that risk out there. I think, having the .com is there, and I think it's a unique 3 letters, and that it did gain some, like maybe 411 or some other 3-letter words, where at least the seller could say that someone else could open up a business called 360.com. We tell you everything about everything, or something like that, and not have it be seen as a complete, rip-off on the person's, use of the numbers. So for whatever that was worth, I think that probably that probably helped them, and that the numbers themselves have gained some meaning. They wouldn't be worth 17 million as that, but at least that there wasn't 194. So I don't think the Chinese economic risk of the whole country only growing at a 3% rate instead of a 9% rate is as much as maybe the risk of being in the CN registry.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying as well.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Credit.Club. The domain name Credit.Club, which was valued at $200,000 by the .club registry, sold by mistake for $10.99. .club CEO Colin Campbell, who's been on DomainSherpa in the past, told Kevin Murphy over at DomainInsight.com, quote, "It was listed for $200,000 on Startup.Club, their company's launch pad for selling premium .club domains to startups." Kevin wrote, judging by a post on NamePros by Campbell, the company was in the process of transferring 130 premium .club names from the registry reserve status to its own ownership. And during that period, the domain was unreserved and available for registration. I believe I read on Bruce Marler. Bruce Marler ended up being the registrant. I read that he happened to be coming back from NamesCon at the time and was just checking some domains on his phone at the airport and saw it was available and nabbed it for $10.99. It's just unbelievable that something like this would happen, isn't it, Paige?
I think the .club's response to it is what's unbelievable, because I think it's fair. I mean, I was involved with something like this, and if it's a mistake, they can say we have the right and the agreement to pull it back. Now, they did make a big point to saying we could have if we wanted to, but I mean, I do the same thing all the time, and I give Bruce credit for actually following through in the cart. There's a lot of registrars that show premium names as available, and it isn't until you check out and then you pay and then you find out that, no, it wasn't available. But you kind of say to yourself, hey, I'm better off going through and checking out because maybe it has, and certainly I will more now than even then. But I think their response to it, to sit there and say, hey, this person registered this name in good faith, we showed it as available, what are we really standing on? We'd have to stand on, well, we made a mistake and we want to sell it for more later, so we're going to choose to take it back from you, as opposed to them sitting there going, wait, what do we really have to stand on?
Yeah.
We made a mistake, and we made a mistake.
Right.
So,
and to your point, I know for a fact that we've discussed on the DomainSherpa discussion, you've registered domain names of new TLDs, and has Mike, and they were premium by mistake listed as regular, and then they were taken back by the registry, or you had the chance to reserve it at the proper price. So yeah, it is awesome that .club said, our mistake, you get to benefit.
Yeah, I still have my receipt from GoDaddy where I bought luxury data stage for $165, whatever it was, on day 5 of the pre-EAP, and they, obviously didn't fulfill it, and they said it's a $12,000 a year name. So there's tons and tons of instances that I've talked about and Paige has talked about over the last year since the new utility started, where stuff like this has happened, and this is the only instance probably that the registry actually honored, the deal and sucked it up. So, and of course that's, in part why we've been working with them for a long time. Those guys are high quality guys, very smart, they're good operators. They made a mistake and they're living with the mistake. So,
yeah, and when you say we've been working, you mean you and Monty Kahn, right, of the Doc Consultancy?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I think that .club has done a fantastic job, as I do on all of my shows. If somebody's doing a great job, I want to give them kudos because I want to encourage them to do it more, and I want to, differentiate them from their competitors. So kudos to .club registry for doing this. I think I own more .clubs than any other new TLD, and I'm proud to have done so. Andrew, final thoughts on the Bruce Marler registration of .club. Are you jealous?
Yeah, a little bit, but really just a couple thoughts. One, this was a registry mistake, not a registrar, so it was a little bit different from some of these others. But
True.
I think they did the right thing, and I think I think they probably sat there and realized that they had exactly the type of person we're looking for in the Startup.Club program. Someone who's going. I mean, he had the site up in like 48 hours after this news came out. You know, he's out there pushing it. I've known Bruce for a long time. You know, the publicity that .club's going to get, having another well-developed domain name out there is more worth it than the bad press and a potential extra money they could have gotten had they ever sold the domain name in the future.
Yeah, and they did get a lot of good press as well. It was picked up by a lot of tech trade magazines, from what I could tell.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, congrats to Bruce. Yeah.
Mike, can I say one more thing? I still think it would be a good time before a bigger one happens for the industry to say under what circumstances can a registry or a registrar invade the account to take the name back. And should there be a process where it's not one side of the agreement determining we interpret the agreement to say we can, therefore we just did, and it's a fait accompli that the name's gone. I still think that there should be a process in which that name is either locked or held, and then someone decides. But just the idea that because they possess it, or that they're an affiliated company, whatever, that they possess it, that they have the right to then interpret. I think that isn't fair to the registrant. So I'd still like to see a discussion about this, so it isn't always, hey, what did they decide to do?
Well, let me pose it back to you. When you register a domain name, you are saying if the registrar, the registry screwed up for any reason, they can pull the domain name back. You agree to that when you buy the domain name. Why isn't that good enough? Why isn't that the process?
Because I still think they at least have to say what their reason is.
They mispriced it by accident.
Then they have to say that. I want someone to say that, not, oh, your name's gone, your money's back, no soup for you.
But don't they say that when the registrar emails you and they say, hey, sorry, we need to, or I'm not even sure they say sorry. Hey, this domain name should have been priced at $17,000 instead of $175, and we're going to pull it back. Or
they don't say we're going to pull it back. They say we did it. We already did it.
Well, in Mike's case, they said you can keep it for $17,000 or whatever the number was.
Yeah, but actually not. Like my case, the registrar pulled it back and said, just says, we allocated to you an error or whatever, and the name's no longer in your account.
Yeah.
So, I obviously reached out and went further and went to the registry to find it. I got the story, which, a lot of people aren't in a position to do. So, I mean, I got the story because I got the story, but that's, it doesn't come to you that way.
No.
It doesn't. The registrar, just says you had the name and now we're taking it away.
Yeah. So it's the difference between legally and morally. Legally, they have the right to do it because it's the paperwork that you agreed to when you bought the domain. But morally, they're not really fulfilling
Mike, they don't have the right to take. They can't make up a reason like we like the name, or the name has more value to us. So it's not any reason. There's a certain reasons that they can say are worthy of it, but they can't just sit there and say, hey, we came up with a marketing program and we wanted to use your name, so we took it and it's okay in the terms and conditions. Like, I don't believe they can do that. I mean,
I can't. Well, they can do it because, they can do it, and they do it unless you file a lawsuit and challenge it, which would be interesting. I mean, I don't particularly have the interest in, chasing one of these names for 4 years and spending $100,000 in legal fees.
Well, I don't remember any registry pulling a name back because they wanted to use it for a marketing campaign.
But that's what I'm saying. We need to establish a process under which we don't just leave it up to hindsight as to everyone's interpretation of what was fair or not fair, but that we have something in place that says this is when we can invade the account.
Andrew, what do you think? Do we need more rules in the industry about when a registry can or cannot take a domain name back?
The registrant has rights too.
Well, I agree, but I mean, they don't. I mean, the only way that that's going to happen is if ICANN passes such a rule, which they're not going to do, or if somebody goes to court and challenges it. There is back in, I don't practice law anymore, but back in my law school days, there was something called a contract of adhesion, which means basically a contract where you don't have the ability to negotiate. So that's kind of what these terms and conditions are. I mean, you accept them, but you don't have the ability to negotiate it. And because, unlike a contract between you and I, Michael, when we were selling a name and we go back and forth and chat about the terms, you can't chat about the terms because basically take it or leave it. You can't register the name without it. So, I'm not sure it would actually stand if it went in front of a judge. But, again, you're looking at federal lawsuits. You're looking at 100,000 plus in legal fees, years of litigation, possible appeals. I mean, it's a life's work. So, but having said that, I think there's a reasonable chance a judge would look at it and say, no, you don't get to do that. It's your mistake. You eat it.
Well, and I don't know if any of you have looked at the terms of service at any registrars lately, but I mean, literally, the full terms of service are basically hundreds of pages, because you have, in the section now, they have every different registry. Oh, and by the way, you're agreeing to their terms of service, which is a link to another page,
Right.
which has several pages. And so I think maybe where the rubber meets the road is if it's a registry's fault and the registrar's customer gets upset over and over, maybe the registrar threatens the registry, hey, we're not going to carry your domains anymore.
Right.
But a lot of what I'm seeing is registries blaming registrars for improperly connecting with them, right?
Right.
So who knows if that blame is correct or not, but it's kind of the teething pains of new TLDs in particular.
Yeah, I see your point, Paige. I just feel like I've never heard of an example like that happening in the past, so I would question whether we need a rule in order to try and prevent that from happening in the future. You own land in Tennessee. If the city wants to declare eminent domain and turn it into a park, they have certain rights to do so, I'm sure, and you have the right to file a lawsuit against the city.
That's right, but they can't just walk up and take the land. They can't just walk up and occupy the land.
They have to pay you.
They have to
It's
pay
just
you.
like if Ford sold me a car, and I woke up one day and the car was gone from my garage, and they left a note saying why they took it.
Yeah. All right, sound off in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Next up, as reported by Mike Berkens at thedomains.com, Fadi Chehade, CEO of ICANN, in a story published by the HuffingtonPost.com, which contained a video interview of Fadi at the World Economic Forum, said that in a response to a question regarding land grabs in the new domain extensions, he said, quote, "The reality is the more there are names, less people will actually be hogging names in order to charge a lot for them. Because if somebody took your name in .x, you can go get another name in .y now." Fadi Chehade said that all of us are hogging domain names, including Google and Microsoft and everybody else that's out there that's using a domain name that isn't, that is or is not selling it, that is not using it. What do you guys say to Fadi? Quick break from 3 sponsors of today's show. First, are you tired of being upsold and cross-sold when you buy or renew a domain? Then try the newest registrar being built from the ground up with a beautiful interface, competitive pricing, and 24/7 support. Uniregistry.com will surprise and delight you. The right domain can change your life. Uniregistry.com. Second, investing in Chinese domains is crazy hard without expert native language advice. Now, as a service to the Western domainer community, TLD Registry offers ChineseLandRush.com. Using ChineseLandRush.com will help you invest in Chinese domains with confidence and without knowing a word of Chinese. Finally, if you're buying a domain name from a private party and want to know what else they own, DomainIQ.com is the tool you should be using. View their entire portfolio, filter by Esterbot value, and be a better investor. $49.95 for 250 queries per month. Visit DomainIQ.com/portfolio to learn more. Fadi Chehade, CEO of ICANN, in a story published by the HuffingtonPost.com, he said, quote, "The reality is the more there are names, less people will actually be hogging names in order to charge a lot for them."
And of course, he's making money off of all hoggers at 18 cents a domain, by the way.
Yeah.
But, he really went off message, right? I mean, the message ICANN has been saying, they haven't been trying to promote one domain or another, but they're like, there's innovation, right? And he got the innovation in that, but he kind of went off message there for a while. And, he did say hogging. He didn't call us hogs, to be clear. He just said what we were doing was hogging domain names. But Mike made a great point on his blog about how, we're underpinning ICANN's budget. I'll make another point. ICANN had a hiring freeze at the end of last year because people weren't registering as many domains as they thought, and the new TLDs were rolling out slower than they thought. So, if domain registrations go down, it hits ICANN right away. We're talking about a company, a nonprofit that's gone from, its assets have gone up 10, 15x in the past 10 years. So I do think, I think he slipped. I was also a little bit disturbed when he said the new TLDs mean less cyber squatting. I think he mixed up his message there, because he was referring to hogging domains earlier, which is different from cyber squatting. So I think he just, it's hard when you're on the spot, and I don't know if he actually feels that way in general, or just, kind of got off track.
It could have been a slip of a tongue, or it could have actually said what he actually was thinking. We don't know.
It could be. Sometimes when you go off message, that's what happens. You say what you actually mean.
The ICA is going to be filing a letter comment with ICANN and trying to bring this issue up at the Singapore meeting, by the way. So just to let you know.
Yeah. Well, and so I read your great post over at the Domains, Mike, and he chose the word hogging. Yes, to your point, Andrew, he didn't say that we are hogs, but investors in general are hogging the good domain names. And hogging does not have a positive connotation. You got to admit that, right?
Right.
Now, I thought Mike tried to link together hogging and cyber squatting, and I watched the videos at the Huffington Post. I don't think he was saying that, and I completely disagree with his point about cyber squatting. If there are more domains out there, and there are uneducated people that are becoming aware that these new TLDs are out there, they're of course going to go register Sears.xyz and Amazon.club and all these domains, because they think, hey, maybe this large company is going to come to me. So I completely didn't agree with him that cyber squatting is going to go down with the launch of all these new TLDs. You guys agree?
It's going up, obviously.
Yeah, the data shows it's going up, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think the point is that you're pretty stupid to go get all these trademark names and these other names, because the companies probably aren't going to buy them from you. They're going to say, we can't get everything, or they're just going to file a complaint against you. I think that would be the argument that cyber squatting goes down, because it's not like these domains get any traffic, and if the company is not going to end up paying you for you, you're just wasting your money.
Well, it's completely stupid. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but there are a lot of ignorant people out there that don't realize that yet.
In the short term, maybe in the long term, no, they're going to let these.
Maybe.
I think a lot of new the GTLD investors are new, and I think a lot of them don't know the rules, and they haven't followed the industry, and with the exception of like the yo-yo email. But I mean, there's a lot. I mean, every day. I mean, Andrew watches it, and I watch it, and I mean, every day there's a lot of GTLD cases compared to the amount of. I know Donuts gave you a bunch of crap, but I mean, the number, just eyeballing it, you can see that there's a tremendously higher percentage of new GTLD ERP/URS's cases filed to names registered to .com. I mean, they just are.
Yeah.
So I think in this case, he's getting the benefits, the $350 million from selling pseudo monopolies on something that's valuable. And there's always been this sense back from the beginnings of ICANN that we want to neuter all the value inside a domain name. That it's just some type of technical thing that should be available for everyone to get in a fair manner. But they're not. They're valuable property. They're a way to design a marketing plan and have your distribution system be a domain name on the World Wide Web where people can come and pay for a movie, a fight, a product, or something with no brick and mortar investment. They're an amazing value, and they're an amazing asset. And I think they're still sitting there thinking they're in the $20 market. Will someone with $20 get the 160 millionth best.com or the 1300th best sexy or something like that? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then however they thought that they could create more supply, that it would reduce the value of the names, but they'll still take the 360 million. That was never going to work. These assets are valuable. And the .com names are valuable, and that's why people that are making million-dollar decisions are making them in .com domains. And then you have people making $30 decisions, and I think what you guys just talked about. Well, maybe I'll be the one guy that can register a trademark, and the company will call me and offer me a bunch of money for it. And they're making $30 decisions. And then ICANN, the last thing I'll have to say about this is the registries are hogging just as many names as the registrants. So the idea that it's just they put everything out there without creating any demand. Remember, there was never a public that demanded new TLDs. There was an industry called ICANN of industry participants that wanted to make money selling new TLDs. There was a chairman of ICANN that wanted to make money selling new TLDs. So they got the program through, and then all of a sudden, then they didn't advertise it. They didn't take $150 million and say, let's educate the people on who ICANN is and what options they're going to have on the future of the internet or this, that, and the other. They said, we're not going to do that. So what did they do? They made a couple of little short things with little stick figures that said, hey, like the Jurassic Park thing, the internet is changing, everybody, and that was supposed to be the thing that just told everybody that we had new TLDs. So, yeah, I thought it was an inappropriate comment. It didn't show an appreciation for what's really happening out there in the world.
Yeah.
Now, one final thought on that. ICANN they haven't been trying to promote them to end users. I asked the head of the global domains division at ICANN, if it's their role to market, and he said pretty flatly no. We create this process. It's up to the people participating to go out there and promote this.
Yeah.
Like us hoggers. They basically left it to us hoggers to make the case for why these domains are valuable while they talk about us negatively in the article.
Yeah. But so let me ask you guys, because you've been in the industry a lot longer than I have, and I've only been to one ICANN meeting because I'm trying to understand how this whole ICANN organization works. When the CEO of a not-for-profit organization that is responsible for the DNS root zone records of the internet, and every domain name that I pay for renewal or registration, a certain percentage of that, small 18 cents for .coms, goes to ICANN for their oversight of this. When the CEO gets up there and insults me for being a hogger with a negative connotation, do I have any sort of right as some sort of shareholder, because I pay 18 cents a domain name, to ask for a clarification or an apology? What do you guys think? Or it's like, screw you.
You have a right. You certainly have a right to do whether you could send a letter to ICANN and complain. I mean, as I said, the ICANN is doing it, but I mean that's about all you can do.
That's about all you can do. Yeah.
You can go to the public forum.
You go to public forum.
There's a really small part of the ICANN meeting, very small, where they have an open microphone, and you can get up and state your case.
For 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes, but they don't have to reply, right?
No.
They probably can't reply. They probably said that it's against our rules for us to reply.
No, they have something to reply. I mean, they sometimes will say something, but, I mean, they're not going to say much. But you certainly can, and I think Phil will be doing that on behalf of the ICA, and he'll be trying to, make as much noise as he can about it. Of course, some of the biggest hoggers in the world are also applicants on the new GTLD side, and they've given ICANN, $10 million plus just in application fees. So, they and they made all their money hogging.
It's funny, we just had the Super Bowl, and when they ran out of seats for the Super Bowl, the NFL didn't say, well, your only choice is to sit out on the lawn and watch a big screen. And then when they ran out of lawn seats, they said, your only choice is to go sit in this parking lot and listen to it on the radio. There's an aftermarket. There's a secondary market, and those things that are valuable get taken and get bid up. And if you look at ICANN, trying to control the distribution of these things called top-level domains against the market forces of what's really happening out there, I think the market forces are winning.
Yeah. I know. Can you imagine, if you owned some vacant land in a city that was booming, somebody came to you and asked you to sell, and you're like, no, thank you. They would call you a hogger. They would, I know that land and domain names legally have different identifications, but I don't know.
Anything. Teslas. I should have the right to buy a Tesla. I should have the right to buy a Tesla. I should have the right to buy this. I should have the right to buy this.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the mayor of the city calling, a big landholder who pays tens of millions of dollars in property taxes to the city a hogger.
Yeah.
It's unheard of. So,
right.
I mean, I've told customers this. The moment everybody in the world stops owning domain names they're not using, I'll stop. Okay?
All right. Speaking of domain names that are not being hogged, Fadi Chehade, Verisign has launched a new contest, a new .com contest, and they're giving away $100,000 in cash prizes to show that there are plenty of domain names that are available that entrepreneurs with creativity can go register. Our own Mike Berkens was asked to be a judge by Verisign. Mike, how does the contest work?
The contest works by people submitting newly registered domain names to a panel of judges, which will number between 3 and 5. And there'll be monthly prizes for the judges' picks, and there'll be a grand prize winner, I think, of $35,000 plus monthly prizes, like $15 per month of $5,000. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so basically, I have an idea for a business, right?
Yeah.
And then I go register to the .com for $10 or $12 or wherever, use a GoDaddy coupon, you can get it for like $2. And then I go to Verisign.com, and you can find their page to submit it. But basically, you write a short little business synopsis of what you're going to build. Do you actually have to build the website on the domain?
I don't believe you do. I mean, I'm sure it would help if you possibly did. And there's going to be some sort of filtering process because as a judge, I think we're going to get maybe 20 to 30 entries per month. So sort of like American Idol, I guess, where 15,000 or 20,000 people show up and only 100 get in front of the judge. There's probably some prejudging. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's interesting. I was kind of surprised. I got the call in November. Where they, asked me if I would do it. I'm the only judge of the 3, plus there's 1 or 2 celebrity judges that get to be named that are from the domain space. So I thought it was a pretty big honor, and pretty quickly to do it. So I think it's good. Again, it's the 30th anniversary of .com, although it seems just like a couple of years ago that Aaron bought Symbolics, the first domain name, in the 25th anniversary. So I was pretty surprised that it was the 30th already. But definitely time flies. But I think, again, the spotlight shining on the domain space can only help all of us. So I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting their press release they put out, pointed out the success of shipyourenemiesglitter.com, and they're like, look, this 22-letter domain name was just registered, and someone made something out of it. So I found that kind of interesting. Yeah.
And the domain industry is full of really creative people that have some great ideas. And we all know how hard it is to develop a website. In this contest, you don't even need to develop anything. Just come up with the idea, buy the domain name, and register it. And you could get $5,000 for being a monthly winner, and then end up with $15,000 or $30,000 later on. That's a lot of cash. It's not like they're saying we're going to give you a hosting services for $5,000. It's cash.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I think it's a good move, and again, anything that shines spotlights on domains is good.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you'll see more of it. I think this is kind of like when the New York Stock Exchange started advertising, even before you kind of heard of NASDAQ. They started saying, we want to advertise our brand, we want to get it out there. The new TLDs have had an environment where there wasn't marketing coming from .com. There was registrar programs, but I don't know if there was ever any really true marketing. And so, a little percentage of the money that they make spent on marketing is a big time. They were very present at NamesCon. I think it was 9 staff from Verisign were there. Got to talk to them. One of them was actually at our live Sherpa review and bought a domain name during the Sherpa review. So he was, a guy in charge of marketing .com, bought a .com during the review. And I think that whether it's the sleeper has awakened or whatever, I think we'll see .com marketing here in the near future more and more.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, this is the end of the show. Unless you want to talk about new TLDs, What came out last week that you registered? Yes or no? No?
Oh.
No? All right, nothing of interest. All right, 30 seconds a piece to promote anything you want. Latest shows, latest articles, promotions. Let's start with you, Paige Howe. What do you want to promote?
What do I want to promote? We'll do some .tv this week. We'll open up dnstore.tv. We'll put in some names under $100. So we think if .tv was on its own, it would be one of the most successful new TLDs. Now, we did see 2 guys at Verisign that are in charge of marketing for TV that were at NamesCon. I think they recognize it. I think it was hard for them maybe to be like, well, if we promote TV, does that mean we're admitting that there's an alternative to comm or something like that? But I think at some point in time, they're going to see it, and you'll see some more marketing for TV. So dnstore.tv, come on down, look around, get yourself a .tv.
Yeah, how many .tvs have been registered, Paige? Any idea?
I think it's like 1.3 million, but I could be off by 1 million.
Yeah,
So give or take 1 million.
But like if it came out today, .tv would probably be, just as hot as the .app, which is pending still. Or don't you think it would be one of the top level domains?
Yeah, it's world. I mean, it's held its own. The names have broad shoulders. They can support the 4- and 5-figure sales. They can carry a network. And again, with this whole over the top and cutting the cord, I mean, if you've got good content, instead of having to even pay YouTube, you can connect to the internet for your small annual renewal fee and exploit that content and make as much money as you want without the FCC, without having to pay for cable licensing rights, without having to buy bandwidth. You're instantly a media company. So obviously we like it.
Wow, I should go buy some TVs. Mike Berkens, anything you want to promote that has nothing to do with the Patriots?
Absolutely. We have the extended auction from NamesCon that ends tomorrow, which would be today, I guess, when
Thursday.
It's there. Thursday?
Yep.
At 15 Eastern Standard on names and snap names. And there's some activity. There's definitely some bids. We expect that there will be some last-minute bidding on it. So all the names that didn't sell, which were about 50 from the live auction, plus about 200 plus new domains that weren't at the live auction, are in the extended auction, and you can check it out by going to snapnames.com and look on the right side, and there's the right of the dot extended auction join in progress. So check it out.
All right. And I told my daughter after the game, when she was just heartbroken that the Seahawks lost, I told her, you were born in Connecticut. The Patriots are technically your home team. But it didn't seem to make her feel any better, Mike.
Do you want me to send her a hat? I'm sure it won't be broken.
I don't think it would help. Thanks, though. Andrew Allemann, anything you want to promote or mention?
2 quick things. The 10th annual Domain Name Wire survey just started. You can go to domainnamewire.com, just search for a survey, and you'll find a link to it. And my podcast this past week was kind of interesting. I took my MP3 recorder around NamesCon, talked to some of the exhibitors, stepped into a few of the sessions. So you can find that at dnw.com/podcasts.
Nice. And I took the survey. When will the results be out? You had some interesting questions on there about the industry.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 weeks I'll start rolling out the survey questions. And it take, 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, like 5 minutes tops. Some good questions about where respondents think that the industry is going in 2015. So I'm interested to see how my response is compared against everybody else's. Thanks for putting that together. Go to domainnamewire.com and search for survey. I'm going to give a quick plug to Monday's Domain Sherpa show. We've got the Domain Sherpa review where we review portfolios, but based on an audience member's suggestion, Eric Jenkins, we are eating our own dog food, and one of the Sherpas' portfolio is being reviewed. You not only get to see what the Sherpa thinks their top 10 domain names in their portfolio are, but what their bottom 10 domain names are. You might be surprised. And then their most recent purchases and what we can learn for them. So sign up for the Domain Sherpa newsletter to find out when that airs on Monday. If you have any questions about what we discussed today, please post a comment below this video on DomainSherpa.com, and I will ask the Sherpas on the next show. Or, if you have other questions that you just want to know what Andrew thinks or Mike or Paige think, please post those below, because if they don't get a chance to come back and answer them on the page, then I will ask them on a follow-up show. Andrew Allemann, Michael Berkens, and Paige Howe, thank you very much for coming back to the Domain Sherpa discussion, sharing your insights and expertise, and helping others reach their peak in the domain name industry.